Okay, so in this video we're going to attempt to create a trading system based on some ideas I got from Wayne McDonald's for FX Bootcamp. So one thing that he talks about is whenever the market opens on the weekly basis at the M2 or the M3. So if you're a bull, you buy it at the M2. If you're a bear, you sell at the M3. And so I want to take all of those scenarios and see which ones work. Like if we're in an uptrend or a downtrend, see if we can build rules around them where we're going to take profits, where we're going to move our stop, when we're going to move our stop, and so on. So we're going to be looking, this is going back 2 years, we're going to be looking for any situation where the market opens at the M2 or at the M3. Alright, so this week opens up right at pivot. That's a no trade. This week opens up right here at the M2 and it drops below. So one thing to note that we are in the downtrend. So if we were to take it with spread, we would be minus 66 pips. Okay, the very next week we open up right at the M3. Okay, and this is a stair step down, so it's a downtrend, and we opened up right there. So according to the system, you put your stop above R1 and then you can cinch it up later. So let's say we opened up here. Once we get below central pivot, maybe you can start moving your stop down. So if we were to move our stop down just below the highest high, it would still be up here at minus 34 pips. We are looking for targets, so we don't have any targets until if we go to, so if we were to take this trade here and we keep our stop up here, if we would have moved our stop down to above this high, would be out at minus 25. But if we kept it up here and we took the first target, which is the M1, we would have 105 pips. But if we waited for a S2, then we would have been plus 193. All right, moving on to the next week. We did get an open up at the M2. Let's see here. This is a stair step down, open up at M2 above the weekly M2. We did get price move above central pivot. That's where I usually would move my stop. So if we get in here with spread, move my stop to below the lowest low, I'm out at minus 15 pips on that one. Next week. So by the way, this is the last week of the month. And usually I've noticed that trade setups are not really all that good on the last week of the month. So we'll keep that in mind when building the rules to it. So next week we did not open up at one of those areas. The following week after that, it looks like we did get an opening right here at M3. And this is going to be a counter trend move. So let's go ahead and take a look at this here. And see, market opened right here. We would have had our stop above here. Once we move below central pivot, we would have moved down our stop. If we were to take the very first target, we would have had profit at 103 pips. If we were to take the second target, we would have profit at 138 pips. Okay, moving on. Okay. This is a possible one. We did have a market open, and one of the things to say is if we are coming out of a weekly profit-taking zone and we do get a market open, even though it's a little bit farther away from M2, I don't know if I would have taken this. Again, this is why we're reviewing it. Let's go ahead and see here. Spread would have been up here. My stop would have been down below the support level. And which is S1. And if I were to take it here, I would probably jam my stop below here once we reached above the weekly central pivot, If I were to take it at M4 for profit, I would be up $146 or 146 pips. If we would have held onto this trade, waiting for a R2 take profit zone, we would have waited a long time, but we finally got one, so let's go ahead and mark that out. Alright, so this is one right there. So if we got in here, waited several weeks, okay, we would have taken 192 pips profit. Alright, so let's go ahead and collapse this here. Alright, last week of the month, with spread, we would have been up here, so that's probably a no-go on that one, too high. Okay, the week going into the next month, we opened somewhere in here, that's a no-go. Following week after that, we opened up at central pivot, that's a no-go. Week after that, central pivot. Alright, the week after that, we did get an opening. This is a stepping down right at the weekly M2. Alright, so if we did take this trade, we probably got a full stop on this one, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. So let's see here, with the spread, we're probably in here, and probably took a full stop at minus 59 pips. Alright, going into the last week of the month, we did get an open at the M3 last week of the month, and we did take a full stop on that one. We'll go ahead and mark that out. Here to here, minus 53 pips. Alright, first week of the month, we got an open at central, so that doesn't count. Alright, we came out of the weekly profit zone. We got an open up at M2. And stop this out. Go ahead and take a look at that. Alright, so minus 55 pips. Alright, next week, open up at central pivot. Doesn't count. Next week, opened up at central pivot. Doesn't count. Next week, opened up at no man's land. Next week, opens up too high. Next week, came pretty close to the M3. Let's see here. This would have been a full stop. Or one, minus 47 pips. And keep in mind that this is a counter trend trade. Okay, next week, got to open up at M2. Go ahead. Minus 63 pips on that one. This is last week of the month also, keep in mind. Okay, next week. We did get an open right here at M2. Never breached the central. Probably kept the stop below S1. And we're looking for, because this is an inside week, probably a target at R3. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one here. Once we breach central, we move our stop below here. And our profit here is 105 pips on that one. Alright, so following week opens up at central. Week after that, we do get our M3 open. And our stop is way up here. And let's see, a couple of different targets here that we could have taken. So we get the open right in here, and either we take profit for 100 and looks like 116 pips, or we take the next level here, which is good for 136 pips. Following week, we did get an open at M2. Did not cross the central pivot. Most likely took a full stop on this one. Minus 40 pips. And also keep in mind, this is the last full week of the month. This is a split week here. Did not open in a preferred area. Next week, opened up at M2, went above central pivot, most likely jammed our stop. Alright, so somewhere in here, minus 15 pips. Following week after that, we did get, let's see here, right in here, we did get really close to the M3. So let's go ahead and take that here. Our stop would have been above here. So if we were to get in close to the M3 on the open, and we were to take the first profit target, that would have been good for 80 pips. And if we would have held on to our trade, we would have been eventually stopped out either at break even or at minus 28 pips once we moved down our stop a little bit. Okay, moving on. It did come down to M2, never breached the central pivot, took a full stop. Let's go ahead and mark that out. Alright, so minus 42 pips on that one. Very next week. This is the last week of the month. We did open up at M3. We did breach central pivot. We're going to move our stop, never reach the take profit zone. So if we did take the very last week of the month, we would have been stopped out for approximately 11 pips on that one. Very first week of the month, did not get our opening that we wanted. Comes in, comes all the way to the monthly take profit zone, opens up right there on the monthly take profit, which is actually should be a very good sell. Came below central pivot, we probably moved our stop, did not hit target, came all the way back, either stopped us out at break even or stopped us out for a small loss of 17 pips. Very next week, opened up right at M2, did not breach central pivot, probably moved our stop just under here. And let's take a look at targets here. So if we opened up with spread, we're in somewhere up in here. And if we were to take the first profit taking zone, we would have had 131 pips on that one. If we were to hold on for a second profit taking zone, we would have been stopped out at this point here, which would have been 33 pips on the stop. Following week, after coming out of the take profit zone, we did get our entry right here, which would have, and our stop would have been up above here, so it would have came really close but did not hit. So what we're doing now is we're looking for profit target zones. Once we did breach the pivot, where's the pivot? Let's see here, I can't even see what this is. This is our central pivot here, so it didn't breach our central pivot until the following week, which we would have probably jammed our stop right above here. This is an inside week, so we're taking a look at taking profit here at S3. So let's see here, let's go ahead and let's see, we open up our trade here, we're taking profit down here at S3, 99 pips on that one. Very next week, we did get an open at M2 here. We took a full stop. Let's go ahead and mark that one. So full stop minus 24 pips on that one. And remember, this week in here was the very last week of the month. We'll keep that in mind. Alright, so next week we did get an open at the M2 level, came up above central pivot, move your stop to either break even or just below here, so we'll take a look at that if we were to take a stop. So with spread, you're probably in around here, and you're out at minus 38 pips on that one. Following week here, you did get an open right in here, so you would have been in, your stop would have been above R1. Once we move down below central pivot, you jam your stop or put it to break even. If you put it break even, we would have stopped out at break even. once price came above. But if we kept it up above, again, we're going to do all the stats on this. We're going to take profit on an inside week. Well, is this an inside week? Okay, so you're probably gunning for the monthly take profit zone, because usually if weekly take profit zone is really close to the monthly, it's going to go directly to the monthly. So that's good for 125 pips on that one. Okay, so the week after, we did get an open up at M2, never came above central pivot. We took a full stop on this one. Go ahead and mark that out. Right in here, it's a full stop. This one's going to be a full stop for 38 pips. Okay. This is a split week, split between the months here. We are coming out of the monthly take profit zone. We got an open with the spread. We would have been kind of high up in here. That I wouldn't consider. This is a different trading system we're going to go over later whenever it comes down to the M2, but after the open, after the first hour. So this happened after the first hour. So we'll go over those ones later. But as far as I'm concerned right now, the open probably with the spread would have been too high for me to take on that one. So we'll go and move on to the next week. Opened up over here by central pivot, no trade setup. Next week, no trade setup, too low. Next week. All right. And within the first hour, you probably would have been trying to take it right here. Your stop would have been down here. Once we get above central pivot, you're probably jamming your stop right below this one right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we got in right around here and jammed our stop. So we're out at 43 pips on that one. All right, this one opened up right up our sell zone here. Our stop is right up here. We didn't move our stop to here until we breached the central pivot. So we did get a couple of different target zones here. So this is probably my entry here. All right, target at 95 pips or 126. Moving on. That's the last week of the month, by the way. Okay, so next week. All right. Next week we did get the M level open. Our stop is below here. We don't move our stop until it breaches central pivot, which it did, and then we move our stop here. And we eventually did get stopped out on that one, so let's go ahead and mark that as well. All right, so we're in somewhere in here. We did take a stop, so minus 63 pips. Very next week after that, we didn't get an opening, preferred opening. Very next week after that, within the first hour, we did get an opening right up in here. That would have been close enough for me to take. Stop well enough away, so probably taking it right in here somewhere. Once we moved below central pivot on the weekly, jammed our stop. First take profit zone would have been good for 124 pips. Second profit taking zone would have been good for 145 pips. Very next week did not open at our M2. And by the way, this was the last week of the month, so we're going to keep that in consideration. Yeah, well, you know what? I missed one. So we had the sell. Let's see. We had the sell here. Very next week, we did get an open at the M2 very quickly, and then we took a full stop on that one, so let's go and mark that one out. Once it came down, you probably have the spread up here, and we got stopped out right down here for minus 38 pips on that one. All right, last week of the month, by the way, last week of the month. So we'll do stats on all that. All right, very next week, we got an open up that's too high. This is a split week, by the way. Very next week, within the first hour, let's see, 15, 30, right in here, you would have taken it. Price came below central pivot, you jammed your stop. So let's take a look at that. So right in here, jammed your stop, minus 17 pips on that one. Very next week, let's see, price opened up right in here, gap down, so it's too far away, no entry. Very next week, right in the take profit zone for the monthly, you have entered, drop below central pivot, jammed your stop, so either a break even or, let's mark this one here, you have gotten here, jammed your stop, minus 23 pips on that one. Split week. Split week. All right, opens up right on it. Let's see here. Moved your stop above central pivot. Also, keep in mind we're coming out of the monthly take profit zone here. So normally I wouldn't be taking any more below setups. But if we did, we came really close, but we ended up getting stopped out either at break even or just below, so minus 14 pips on that one. This is a split week as well. Very next week. All right, so we did get an entry. See, it opened, and I'm probably taking it right in here. Didn't come anywhere close to our stop, so let's go ahead and mark this out. So let's say I got it in right in here. Come all the way down. So this is a plus 95 or plus 126. Very next week. Opens up here. Never came close to our stop. We didn't jam our stop until probably somewhere in here. Never came close to it, but we did start hitting. Let's see, it's an inside week, so more than likely I'm looking for higher targets, which we did not receive. And I more than likely got stopped out either at break even or just below this right here at minus 34 pips on that one. Very next week opened up right at M3, went directly to our stop at minus 27. Very next week opened up here and went directly to our stop. Alright, so this one's going to be minus 33. This is the last week of the month, by the way. We'll do stats on that. Very next week, we did get an opening right here and jam my stop right when we reached central pivot. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Probably took it when it came really close to there. Jam my stop, minus 6 pips on that one. Very next week, no setup. Next week, no setup. Next week we did get a setup right in here. So we'll take a look at this one here. This one's going to be the last full week of the month. Alright, so with spread we're probably in up here. Our stop would have been down here, jammed our stop here once we reach central pivot. Either you're out at 99 pips. The monthly take profit is 111. So one of those two we're out at, more than likely at 111. Alright, very next weekly open would have been here. It would have been a sell, and then immediately hit our stop. Minus 43. Alright, this is a in-between week as well, keep in mind. Very next week. Didn't get an open there. Nothing there. Did get an open right here. Hit central pivot. Jam my stop. Minus 18. Last week of the month. Got an open here. Almost hit our stop. Comes above central pivot. Either stop at break even or jam our stop. If I jam my stop, minus 42. Last week of the month, by the way. Okay, very first week. Got an opening right there. Let's see. So, got the opening. Breach central pivot, moved the stop, never came close. Either taking profit at 92 or at 124. And I believe the rest of this is COVID. So let's see when are we? When are we? Yes, we are in COVID territory here, so it's a shock to the market. All right, you probably didn't really know about it in here, but once I remember when it came out, I was just like sidelined after that. So we'll go ahead and skip a few here. So we can go into, I believe it was the end of March or April until things started correcting. Okay, so things started getting kind of back to normal in the end of March as far as trading goes. Your pivots are starting to work again. This is a really good setup right here because we came down into the monthly take profit right at M2. We breached all these levels here, so my stop is going to be jammed, waiting for a take profit zone. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark our entries. We're going to be going in the future. So let's see, we got in with spread probably like right around here. My stop would have been eventually jammed right line here. Okay, so I have my entry and my stop on that one. All right, and we did get an entry or an exit, two different exits on that. So let's go ahead and bring this up here. So my entry was here. Either we're up 260 or 299. Okay, so let's go with the next week. So this is the last week of the month. This is a split week here. We did get an M3. All right, so if we did get the M3 on split week, let's go ahead and erase these two guys right here. Delete and delete. Okay, so we did get the entry on, and we breached the central pivot. We moved our stop just above here, and took profit here at the M1. All right, so if we did that, let's go ahead and we took a trade probably somewhere in here. Took it all the way down to plus 375. Did not get this one here, and if we did not get it, then we eventually get another one? Is the question. Alright, at some point you're probably going to have your stop at break even, but that's good information to know that we did not reach the second take profit. Alright, so next week, we did not get an open where we wanted. Following week after that is the split week. Didn't get an open where we wanted. The week after that, didn't quite get to the entry level. Week after that, didn't get there. This one you would have been with the spread way up in here, so that's a no-go. That's a no-go last week. This one here opens up right there, so we would have been stopped out, full stop on this one. Let's see here. If it opened up, we would have taken it right here and a full stop minus 101 pips on that one. Very next week, we didn't get the preferred opening. Very next week after that, we are coming out of the monthly take profit zone. If we did take it anyways, we would have been stopped out because we pulled above central pivot. I would have jammed my stop, and we would have been minus 38 pips on that one. Very next week. All right, very next week, even though we came out of the monthly take profit zone, let's say we did take this one here, we would have jammed our stop. Either we take it again, take profit again at the monthly take profit zone, or because we already went there once, usually if it goes there again, it breaks through it or it goes into the next month. So we're going to take a look at this one here. If we held on to this one, we would have either been taking profit over here at plus 146, or the second zone here is at plus 174. Next week is a split week. We opened up too high. Next week open up at central pivot. Oh, you know, one thing to keep in mind also is that this is an inside week right here. You can see how much larger these other ones. So usually I want to take profit at R3 on the inside. This one also kind of is in an inside, so either we could have held off on taking profit here and taking profit up in here, or waiting for the monthly. So let's go ahead and do those stats on that day as well. If we were to take this here instead of taking profit here, we're waiting for the next week's, which is 192, or at the monthly, which is 243. Disregard that one because it is this one that we're looking at instead. I took the wrong week. This one here is going to be either the first one that we talked about, or 242, or the monthly 296. Alright, following week is a split week. Didn't get an opening that we wanted. Following week, central pivot. Following week, central pivot. Following week, gap down. Okay. Following week is way above the monthly take profit. If I sold here, I would have taken a full stop. Go ahead and mark that out. Full stop. Minus 93. Alright. That's a split week as well at the end of the month. Alright, going into the very next week, which is the beginning of the next month. Didn't get the opening I wanted. Very next week, did not get the opening that I wanted. Very next week, did get an opening here and took a full stop. Alright, so full stop is minus 61. Alright, so the very next week, which is the end of the month, it opened up too high. Spread would have been up here. That's too high to take. Split week right here. If I were to take a split week, let's see here, this would have been a full stop, so this would have been minus 57. Okay, and we got a new, see, new month, new week opens up here. New week opens up at central pivot. New week opens up too far below. These are 15-minute or these are hourly candles, so no. Let's see here. Nothing until we get a split week here coming out of the monthly take profit zone. And if I were to take it on a split week with the spread, I've been in here. Either I'm getting out at the first take profit zone, which is good for 184, or I held on for 246. Okay, next week, no entry. Next week is a, let's see here, I would have been in somewhere up in here the first few hours of the opening, and if I were to take the first profit target level, I would have had 115. No secondary target. Stop would have been jammed if I would have held on for minus 10. Next week after that opened up. Within the first couple hours, I may have taken this one right here because it's close enough, and the spread would have kind of calmed down a little bit. Let's say get in right here. First profit take target level is at 127, or the second one would have been at 165. All right, we'll go ahead and do the stats and see which ones worked, which ones didn't. Okay, I'm back. After several hours of trying out all the different possibilities and testing everything out, backtesting, I came up with my optimized system. So, if price is below or above, this is where I'm going to place a stop. It's going to be below or above the S1 or the R1. So as I get the entry, I place my stop below the S1 or above the R1. When and where do I move the stop? So I'm going to move the stop. I'm going to jam it above or below the weekly swing high or low. That's after we enter through central pivot. So let's see here. If I enter in here, we get the central pivot. I move my stop from way below to jammed just underneath these lows right here, the swing lows. All right, and I don't move my stop after that. That's it. Okay, and where do I take my profits? So I am going to take it at the conservative level here at the M4 or at the M1. I've noticed that I lost out on too many trades going for the R2 or the S2. All right, so the question was last week of the month. What do I do about the last week of the month? I noticed that a lot of times, traders like to jock for position for the next month. Trade it. Go ahead and trade it. It was profitable. The ones that were not profitable were those split weeks, the ones that were split in between, just like this one right here. This is one of those odd ones that was profitable, but I had like a ton of failures in a row. This was just an odd one right here recently. Let's see here. So trade within a few hours. When I went back and I was watching the video, I noticed that I was saying within the first hour, but within the first few hours. Now, what I'm really looking for, let me pull this aside here just one moment. What I'm really looking for, and let me pull out my pen here, is I'm looking for price to, let's say it opens up here. I don't want it to make a run for a central pivot and then start moving down this way. That's not the open system that I'm looking at now. On the flip side, if I get price opening up around here and then it just kind of trickles down and it's at my lower quadrant here with the spread, I will probably be more inclined to pull the trigger somewhere right in here. Okay, and let's see here. All right. So I had some stats I want to share here with you. So very basic rules, really easy. You just got to be there at market open on Sunday afternoon. Well, at least Sunday afternoon my time. I'm in Arizona, so that would be 2 p.m. My time. Be at the market open. So the first few hours is what I'm looking at for this trade setup. And I would set alerts on my chart at central pivot. That way, when it reaches central pivot, I know to move my stop, and I have my take profit placed. And if it doesn't reach it that week, the very next week, I move up my take profit to the next level. All right, and so my stats on this one. There's 2 years worth of data. This is just for the Euro USD. Now I'm going to be back testing this for all the other pairs that I trade. The pound yen, the odd yen, the CAD yen, the euro yen, the pound dollar, the Australian dollar, the Canadian dollar, the Euro USD. Okay, so combined, I think that we're going to have a lot more than just 47 trade setups. But this is 47 trade setups with the USD with the Euro USD. I had a 44.68% win percentage with a 55.32. Again, I'm not one that's too concerned about win to losses. The percentages. What I really care about is the end result. So this is comes out to a 2.3 to 1 risk to reward, and total wins was 2,712, while I had a total losses racked up of 1,055. And my total pips between all that, all said and done, was 1,657. And every time I entered a trade, win or lose, it averages out to 35.26 pips per trade. So not bad. And I think I will be taking this to demo. All right, that's it for now.